Hello, thank you very much for having me here tonight for the Economic Development Committee. I have now been here for 7 weeks, so I may not be able to, I would love to offer the opportunity for questions, but if I say I'm going to get back to it, it's because 7 weeks and I can't answer everything accurately. I could provide an answer, but it may not be accurate. So I did 4-H many, many moons ago in the 70s in Dutchess County, where I grew up primarily. And I also did my undergrad internship at Cornell in Dutchess County. So I have a long history with Cornell and volunteering with them, and I'm very excited about this position, and especially working in Columbia County. I have family that's been here for 60 years plus, so it's really wonderful to be working out in the community. Some of the programs I just want to update you on what we're doing. Now people being more back and present, we've been doing hybrid programming all along through COVID. And so 4-H, we had a welcome back picnic. We have a new group from Hudson that's formed, and we have a lot of excitement from our master gardeners to work with 4-H programs to do some sort of training, cross trainings, where the 4-H kids can learn some skill set from the master gardeners and vice versa. I'm assessing the 2 programs that are regional teams. So all of Cornell organizations, CCEs across the state, we have regional teams that provide agricultural support. So if there are any farmers who you think would like to, and I've connected with one already, who would like to meet with me to let me know how things are going for them. One of the regional teams that the appropriation pays for is the Eastern Horticulture. That's for the commercial growers. I've been to 3 different presentations, found that to be a great cross-section of people from Columbia County and other counties sharing resources, scientific, pesticide application, IPM, all sorts of great things happening there. On the capital agriculture and horticulture programs, one where I'm trying to learn a little bit more, meeting with farmers directly to learn who are they relying upon and how is that working. So your appropriation goes towards funding these regional teams, which draw from the resources of the mothership of Cornell and comes back out into the community to help the farmers and people connect. We also operate the Taste of New York store, and the majority of our products come from Columbia County farmers and makers. And that's something I want to, however I can help support throughout the fun process of the application, which you have to deal with 3 state agencies at once. It's a good time. So it's the Ag and Market, the Thruway Authority, and Economic Development all at once. But we help navigate that to make it a little less painful, because each organization, each state agency needs different data. But we have a really wonderful selection of folks from Columbia County, and at the Columbia County Fair, we'll have people there that are going to be sampling Taste of New York products specifically from Columbia County, and that also can maybe get people interested and excited, because you not only get to have your product in our store that's in the and this is none of this is paid for by the appropriation. I just want you to know it's an extension of the generosity of the appropriation is this ability for us to have the opportunity to participate, and we have a $450,000 grant to run the store, which is in the other county. I'm not going to mention it. I don't want to get in a fight on our first night together, but we're working really well with folks from Columbia County there. And so at the fair in our building, I met with Angela over the phone, and Angela was very excited. We will not be competing with anyone else. We're going to be giving out samples that we've already purchased from the folks who are from Columbia County. So that should build some interest from people who say, hey, I grew up with this person and they're doing this, and I have a similar property or a similar product or similar type of, we could also do things such as people are raising alpaca and they want to do a local product like mittens. No one wants mittens today, but later on in the year. So we try to think of seasonally appropriate things as well. We're also going to hope to do a farmers market and have people from both counties come on Friday afternoons in the fall to see if we can get a couple of, because that's a really high time for generation of sales. So we get the most money on Friday afternoons coming into that, because you can only go north on the Thruway for our stop. It's at the Capital Region Welcome Center. So that also draws people in, and that brings the money back into Columbia County to the businesses who are from this area, the farmers, the makers. So as I said, I'm, 4-H is getting back in person a lot, and that's exciting. I'm, Eastern Horticulture, that component of the appropriation seems to be going very well from what I've heard so far. And capital ag and work programs, that's when I'm going to be diving deeper in, meeting with farmers to find out where things are, what else is needed. And then the master gardeners, that program is doing really well. And one of the things that I want to encourage them to do is to take our amazing property that we have, our I believe it's 13 acres, but I'm gonna have to get down to the records office to verify this, to get more activity, more energy, more excitement about people being on our site. And so some of that will be through the collaborations between 4-H and Master Gardeners, and potentially looking at the opportunity to turn the meeting house, to renovate that meeting house. So we have a really usable kitchen for 4-H, for makers, creators, not a commercial kitchen, but one where people can come and it's not 1960s retro in a non-cool way. It's he shared that he also was there back in and hasn't really changed much. It hasn't really changed much. And then to do the kind of cooking courses that really encourage people to use local foods that are grown here. That's something that I want to look at, and I'll invite people to come, and we'll have some listening sessions and feedback sessions, and also we'll try to figure out how we could fund such a thing. But it's something that's very exciting. Overall, that facility to me has been under kind of utilized, probably because of COVID, and maybe just in terms of just the changes in the patterns. I know there was the merger, but I see just the phenomenal potential of who here has been to the property. Raise your hand. Okay, 1, 2, all right, 5. Okay, great. So for the 5 of you, I would like you to come back, and for anyone who hasn't, I would like you to come out there, and I can set a date for you to see the facility. The issue is always with these facilities, there's the maintenance and the capital and costs. And I'm not going to ask you for money. I'm going to ask you to listen to sort of our ideas for how to help it bring more people from the county, engagement, and also some things that we're going to do to just improve upon it. And part of that will not be using the appropriation funds, as you know that, but just so that you can see when you talk to folks, how does this help the community? Well, it educates young people. It gives people who want to volunteer an opportunity for all these wonderful food programs, which can help for food security issues in rural, as well as with families that are living in more urban environments, like in Hudson. And it can bring people together to learn across different things that are hands-on. I mean, we have this, it's just a beautiful facility. The house, there's been a lot of work done to kind of bring the house into better order. And we're in the process of hiring a new facilities person. So if anyone that position stays open until Friday, we've had a couple of interviews. So if you know anyone who doesn't want to work for a lot of money, but put in a lot of love, please have them call me. Does anyone have any questions for me? Yes.
So our town does a quarterly newsletter, and a couple of times I've reached out to Cornell to say, is there something of interest you would like to put in our newsletter? And specifically, we were looking for help with gypsy or sponge moths.
Oh, yes.
But after several inquiries, I didn't get an answer. And so I did find the community relations person called me. It was a month after the first request and after the newsletter.
When around did that happen?
About 2 weeks ago was when we finally spoke. But it was a really long time, and I thought, well, maybe I was making an inappropriate request.
No, not at all. That would actually be directed to the Capital Ag and Horticulture. A master gardener could answer the question for you, but a question of that nature, is it from your residential community?
Yeah.
So for the residential, a master gardener could answer the questions about it. So
it was the person at the desk. I said, I'm not sure whom I should speak with. Please direct me to the right. So I got bounced a couple of times, but finally there was a community relations person that popped.
Yeah, the master. So in a situation like that, it's the master gardener can help on residential and can give examples of what can be done. And certain communities are being hit much harder than others. It's very bizarre, their pattern. I have the childhood trauma from when they were hanging from the weeping willow trees by my dad's house. So I'm going to give you my card. And if ever anyone can't reach someone within 24 hours, if somebody doesn't call back, please reach out to me. I have my cell phone all the time. And sometimes what has happened since COVID, calls are forwarded and people don't check their voicemails as much because they have cell phones and they're not connected to the voicemail. So, and I can't answer for why it happened, but I'm sorry that happened, but I'll be sure and I'll share my information.
So the other thing is, a couple of us are on another committee called the Climate Smart Task Force, and we understand there's going to be some collaboration between you and the Capital District Regional Planning Association. I'm wondering if you know anything about it or if it's too early days there.
So the Capital District
Regional Planning, is it association, Ron?
District Regional
Capital
Planning.
District Regional Planning
Tara
Department.
Donadio is our contact person.
Planning Commission. Okay,
And
so
I know we don't have the time to get granular, but I'd
Yep.
be happy to supply you with some more information, questions.
yes. So the person on my team who would be the lead on that is Connor Young. Have you all met him prior?
No, but
So-
we've been told his name. We've been
Yeah.
given-
And so I can connect you with him because we were just at the climate carnival a couple of weeks ago. And so there's a lot of different organizations that we're partnering with their either county agencies, state, and different collaborations. So he's on vacation this week, but if you email me the questions that folks have, I can make sure that Connor or Tracy, who's the person who's works directly with him, or Kelsey, who a lot of the folks when they were out in the community recognized Kelsey West. She's also on that team.
I think Carol's setting up a call to kind of facilitate
Excellent.
asking and answering these questions.
Excellent. And
So I'm assuming this is a new program for you and it would not be part of our appropriation to date.
it is not a part of the appropriation at all. It's above and beyond services. So this is additional work that we're like right now we're working with 8 to 10 towns or villages within the county. And that is also not funded by the appropriation. So this is additional funding to do more services. None of the climate work is not paid through the appropriation. That's money we've had to go and seek elsewhere. So those are DEC, DEP, EPA, collaborations like Ag and Market. Like there's about 15 different agencies that we cross-pollinate with essentially to do those kinds of programs. So the appropriation doesn't cover it, but however people want to learn about it and become engaged, we absolutely. So it's not taking anything from the appropriation because those programs are, but they're very important programs that are being funded and are I'm not sure if anyone knows the numbers of that fair, but I was rather impressed with the number of people coming and asking questions. And a lot of people were coming from local farms that wanted to gather information, intergenerational farms, newer farmers, small makers. So it was a very good turnout at that event at the county fairgrounds. So I'll give you my information.
And I just wanted to say welcome. We're so glad to see you.
Thank
again.
you. It's really not, I'm sorry that I can't answer more granular questions, but I will definitely find out. So it's the Capital District Regional Planning Commission, Climate Initiatives
It's actually a
Grant,
Climate adaptation plan.
Thank you.
Climate
DEC
Adaptation.
says they've contracted with Cornell to do these with the counties.
Mhm.
towns.
So in some cases, we're working with the county, but none of it comes from the appropriation funding because it's an above and beyond service. So we have some, many of our staff are
So
not.
is the state or somebody funding this?
DEC.
Is how we kind of got
Yes.
it pitched? that,
Yes,
you know,
and it's there, so we're hiring an additional person to help manage those grants because of the 6 people that are on the team that do environment and agroforestry and climate. There's too much of a volume of work, so we've received additional funding to hire another person who would have that kind of background. So none of this part comes out of the appropriation funding though.
Thank you.
Welcome. Are there
But
any?
we
other-
look to you as a partner, and if you're doing a program, then we should know.
Well,
about it. So
and I'm only clarifying it because I know that people have very strong
We
feelings.
heard about this through outside.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
no, and I'm
connections.
just sharing that because people have very strong feelings, whether or not, we come from a research science is what we're focusing on. So, we want to clarify how the funding is being used, but that we are seeking this out because the science that we are studying shows that this is important for for us to do. And therefore, but it doesn't mean that there wouldn't be, if there was an interest to assist further and collaborate deeper on it. It just depends on where, the supervisor's interest is in it. And we're, and the appropriation now covers a percentage of a variety of people's salaries who do
Right.
direct work in Columbia County, but all people are made up of all humans that we work with are made of about 7 to 10 grants in order to pay the benefit, fringe, and salary.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Is there any other, and I'll gather more info on that.
Thank you for coming.
You're welcome. Anybody online questions or? Okay, thank you very much. I'll give out cards in case, thank you for having me. Thank you.
Lisa. Welcome.
Mike?
I think it's yours.
I got the take that.
Good afternoon, supervisors. I have with me today Jessica Gabriel, our new senior project director at Columbia Economic Development. Jessica's been with us 6 weeks, so Lisa gets a week ahead of her.
senior?
Right.
Sure.
Okay.
And Lisa, it's great to meet you. We've had a long working relationship as well with Cornell Cooperative and Columbia Economic Development, and also Hudson Valley Agribusiness Development, which is an organization that the Board of Supervisors also supports. We have quite an agenda, but we will be out by 6 because we have to be. I gave you a snapshot of the package that we had put online, and I left out some of the demographic data and other information that I encourage you to go online and look at the package to review. Jessica Gabriel has been hired as part of her responsibilities to coordinate our Columbia Forward initiative with the Columbia County Chamber and the Board of Supervisors to support small businesses. And in the packet behind the housing report, somehow I got them backwards, is the chairman's press release from June 21st announcing the program, and then some materials that Jessica has put together that are graphic in design. And she's going to give a brief update on the status of the project at this point. Jessica?
Good afternoon, all. Great to meet you all. I really am excited to work with you going forward. So as you know, the Columbia Forward program is designed to coordinate additional support for business recovery or pandemic recovery efforts focused on business support and stabilization, job growth, and a dedicated loan and grant program. So just wanted to kind of update you on progress to date. So far, we've been working and developed business training and technical assistance sessions with the chamber. We actually have outlined group sessions that will be on the second Tuesday of every month starting in September, and will include topics such as sales tax, QuickBooks, human resources. And as soon as we confirm instructors and get those locked up, we'll publish a schedule for the remainder of 2022, but that effort's going really well. We're excited about some of the topics are ones that business owners have actually reached out and asked for. So we feel like that's going to really, we're also looking for other topics and ideas, which I think we'll get at the first session or two. An update on activities related to the loans and grants. You can see some of the documents in your packet. We refined the borrowing criteria. Just quickly walk through that is eligibility. There's a minimum of 2 years in business to be eligible for the Columbia Forward loans and grants. Have to have 25 employees or less. And the funding will be up to $25,000 with the grants equal to 10% of the approved loan amount, capped at $2,500. We have several funding requests in the pipeline and are working with business owners on their applications. So I think that seems to be, as soon as the press release was issued, we've got a lot of inquiries coming in. So fielding those and making sure it meets all the criteria. Some immediate next steps. I'll be reaching out to meet with each of you and municipalities in the county to really understand your business development efforts and your priorities as it relates to economic development, and see how we can make sure that the programs we're putting together for Columbia Forward and are meeting your needs, as well as sort of at the local level within what your businesses are meeting. Is there anything you want to add, Nick?
No, I think, we are really looking forward to working with all of you on this program. Jessica, as you can see, brings a great depth to it, and also in partnering with the chamber. We see CEDC's role as assisting each of the towns and villages in City of Hudson with some of the economic development, infrastructure, and strategic planning, working with those of you who have town economic development committees, and we're working closely with HDC and their new organization. And I think with the chamber working directly with some of the smaller businesses, assisting them with the technical assistance and other chamber-like activities of business-to-business networking, it will be a strong program. Again, we're looking for your input and your suggestions. And Jessica has focused in on the fact that we really need to come up with metrics so that at the end of the first year, you'll be able to evaluate whether you want to continue or to adjust the program. And I did speak with someone, and I can't remember who it was, but they said, I guess it was Ken Blass, when we were talking with him about reviving the Columbia Comeback website into Columbia Forward. I said, well, to have metrics, why don't you sit down and decide what would you be proud of at the end of the program if you completed it and looked back as to what you accomplished. And I think that's perhaps something we could have an internal discussion and then get some feedback from each of you and the other supervisors. Are there any questions on Columbia Forward at this point, Mr. Chairman?
I don't, Brenda?
Can these documents be distributed externally?
Yep.
So we could share these with local businesses? And,
I'll send them to you separately there so that you don't have to pull them out of the packet.
Thank
We're working on updating a website, so that'll hopefully you'll be able to just link people to the website, but in the meantime, those documents.
Are these available as emailable documents?
Yes.
so the other thing is the, credit eligible business owners. Can you give me a frame for that?
600 credit score or above.
Okay.
Now, one of the things that it's important, $500,000 of CEDC's loan portfolio is committed to this program to match the $50,000 in grants. So we have other programs for people who might not necessarily qualify for 600. They just won't get the grant, but we will give them the 3.75% interest rate. And again, we have SBA funding, which the criteria may enable us to help start up that doesn't have a high credit score, but at the same time, we didn't feel that the absolute startup was the group of companies that you were looking to support with the grant money.
So you haven't, are any loans out yet? Have you made it?
I don't think so. I think there may be one or two approved tomorrow. But again, initially, we wanted to be sure that if you're coming in for our general cap is 50,000, but you only get the grant here for up to 25. So we want to be sure that people aren't coming in for a lot more and getting the grant by triggering the grant was intended for the businesses that we had all collectively targeted. But I think the important part is that if you don't qualify for this grant, there's still significant funding available through CEDC's other loan program.
Right, and it's competitive.
At the same interest rate.
Yes.
Okay.
Which, 3.75 right now, it'd be hard. The SBA would let us go up to 7 or 8 right now, but I don't think that doesn't help small business. And we also have to be very careful. We had this conversation when I first came, that we don't want to be perceived or in reality competing with our banking partners because we're here to help the people that they're not able to help because of credit or other factors.
So is Jessica help with those other grants, or is she direct the?
Well, Martha Lane runs our
I know, but
our loan
there's-
program.
Are you involved with them, or you say, oh, you go see Mark?
Yeah, I think it's really going to be a collaborative effort. It's where looking at what is the business need and figuring out how best to meet their need and with what program, and also looking at when we start getting in. I mean, we have it's about a $3 million loan portfolio existing. So when we have just a pot of $500,000 with the grant, it's kind of figuring out and being mindful of that cap of what we have to spend. So it's really collective.
I mean, we would rather do more $15,000 loans than $25,000 loans with the grant money because you get more traction with it and you'll serve more people.
So the financing up to 10 years could be for any size loan, or only for the larger loan?
Only for the larger, because what we tried to do when we structured it, to get a $15,000 loan for 5 years, it's $275 a month. If you get a $20,000 loan for 7 years, it's $275 a month. And if you get a $25,000 loan for 10 years, it's $275 a month, because we wanted people to be borrowing money at a level that we'd be the first they'd be willing to pay off, because if we don't have collateral or security behind anyone, because if somebody's first, they've got the significant security. And this way, right now, we have a significant, we have 1.6 million out in loans, over 90 different loans. And we have 3 that are late and they're only 30 days late. And because we work with them, we provide technical assistance. They call and connect with Martha, and I think this is a great complement to that program for the businesses that it was intended to help. Any other questions?
So of them, how much more do you have available?
490 or 475,000 probably. So we're going to be doing some marketing. We looked at some ad copy recently, and again, the chamber is a great partner in this, and will be helping to market it throughout the county. We also want to see some geographic diversity, some business diversity, and provide more opportunities for businesses. But over the last 3 or 4 years, we were receiving $90,000 from the SBA for technical assistance, then 120, 180 this past fiscal year, and we were just approved for 280 for next year. So we're leveraging those funds in helping provide technical assistance to businesses with the program that you provided us the $50,000 grant money for. Any questions? It's not a quick broadband update. Through some connections that we talked about with Jessica, who at one point had been the regional director for Empire State Development. I reached out last week to the ESD Upstate Public Relations Director and said that based on the fact that Scott Rasmussen, who is the head of the New York Broadband Office, had posted on LinkedIn, that he was leaving for a around the world trip for the next year with his girlfriend. That's the fellow you and I met, Ron.
Yep.
I use that as an excuse to say, who do we talk to now? And she
Trust fund title and stuff.
and she gave me the name of a woman at the broadband office, and I emailed her, and she looped me into her colleague. And we had a call today, Dave Finger as our board chair and I, for an exact 30 minutes. And the basis of the call was they're the 2 people in the broadband office for the whole state today. There's going to be some senior people appointed in the next 30 days and other people hired. They are working on identifying at this point how the federal money will flow. I told them I was not thrilled about the PowerPoint that had been circulated previously this year because it appeared to be focused in on providing grant funding to encourage providers to overbuild in areas they didn't have that infrastructure so they could compete with the people who are already there. And I said, our issue is that, we have 46 here and 211 there, and, 99 in another place. And we need to have funding through a rural connectivity program that will fill the gaps, recognizing that some of those gaps are going to be absolute last miles that will either be beyond the scope of the grant funding or may need to find other subsidies or grants. They were very receptive to that. Again, they're a project manager and outreach coordinator. We have to wait for the senior vice president to come in and refine the program. But we were very encouraged by. They thought we were very far ahead in the data that we had, that the information we had pulled together, which leads to those of you may have seen that the Public Service Commission released last month a map where you can go in and put your data in. Unfortunately, we went in and had the consultant use an intern and entered all 1,250 addresses, and 917 are inconsistent with our data. We believe our data is more accurate based on the individual field crews that provided the data and the input we've received from the various town broadband committees and individuals.
Mike, what do you mean by inconsistent?
Well, there's a White House Road in Ankrum. There's 3 houses on there, and one they say has Consolidated, which Consolidated confirmed for me they don't. One said they have Optimum, which I guess only serves Western Massachusetts, and I called Optimum and pretended I owned that house and wanted to sign up, and they said, sorry, sir, we don't have service in New York. And the third one said they had DLS, and we don't know if they do or not.
So was the source of their data census data?
I think the source of their data was either the old FCC data that we had 5 years ago on those maps, or remember they had everyone filling out a survey, and how could you have 5 or 10% survey results and have accurate data? So they did give us the name of the person at the Public Service Commission to begin a discussion with our data on maps, but I've got a spreadsheet that has 2 columns, agreed and disagreed. And, again, from the very beginning, I said, we give anyone who could prove that we didn't have them on the list or anyone who proved they were on the list and didn't have service, we'd give a $2 gift certificate for coffee. If we can straighten out this list, that'd be the cheapest money we've spent on it already.
You're always just like, well,
Well, you have to
Get
go
a half a cup of
yeah,
coffee.
you have to go to Stewart's and be a member on your 10th cup of coffee. But, I think we are in a great position. We just have to be sure that they were very interested and have follow-up call to understand, how did you get all this data? And, I did speak with the folks at ECC and, again, I'm optimistic, but the proof will be in the pudding.
It's a little discouraging to hear though that the state is now they're telling us the same thing they told us in March at the NICEA conference, that they're going to try and figure out what to do with the federal aid money. I mean, here we're several months down the road. They don't know what
Now,
they're doing.
and then, we are we continue to remain available to the extent that any of the 4 towns that received funding from Representative Delgado before he became lieutenant governor, where the money, along with 18 other congressional districts, has been allocated to the USDA for distribution. But again, unless we're as your coordinator of broadband, we're happy to support any effort or provide any service, but we're going to wait until we're asked.
Has there been any discussion about a timetable at all?
Well, yes and no. My understanding is that the FCC, where the federal broadband money will come from, is not yet published for comment, the regulations by which it'll be dispersed. Although I did see an article today that broadband money was on its way. And when I read the article, it was only if you were a provider who hadn't been providing the 30% discount or the $30 a month service to people in need. But, we're on top of it. I've had a couple of calls from, the initial group that got together a year and a half ago, Carl Atkins and others. And, when I responded and gave an update, as I just responded here, although I had more information today than I did 2 weeks ago, he seemed satisfied that we were on top of it as best as anyone else was.
Do you have any sense of what data the New York State's going to use?
No, but, it's going to be hard pressed to argue with us that our data is door to door. And we are, we do know 3 members of the Public Service Commission. If we need to go that route and become, my goal has always been to be the poster child or the pilot program. And I think we need 8 to 10 million. We'll do the whole thing, because we do have pricing from the providers. They just didn't break it out by house, and they put a 20% contingency on it. And I know the 340 plus or minus addresses in Representative Delgado's package, that pricing was all verified. And the thing we did point out to them was, the the providers have told us who have committed to that program that they agreed to go beyond the 300 feet that the Public Service Commission requires for connection. And while we didn't get into that with the ESD folks today, I did tell them that 60% of our addresses are more than 300. We had the consultant go in and how far from the road is the main building on that property? So, maybe your barn is further than your house, but,
Yeah.
Finally, I joke with these people all the time that, as time goes by, if each provider adds one customer a month and we have 4 providers, well, we take 50 houses off the list every year. So, but we don't want to.
Excuse me, we need $8 to $10 million more to finish.
I think you could build out the whole county as far as you can go. There will be people who are on that absolute last mile.
But there weren't many of them.
No.
They've
But-
got 95% of it.
Yeah. I think my goal was to continue to make them see we were pocketed, and that giving a new provider $5 million to come in and build de novo infrastructure would serve 25% of those people, where 8 million would do the whole job.
That intent was just drive down the cost of actual operations in New York City. That's all that was. Yeah.
So I'm glad the guy went on a year sabbatical, and at least we have a shot at getting them to modify their original PowerPoint. The big issue in the 20 minutes left that we wanted to review with you is the draft report from the very successful housing forum that we held back in last day of March, 1st of April. We tried not to have the 200-page report with the that goes on the shelf, and this study all in, including the technology to do the meeting, was under $2,500, and so I thought we got really a good roadmap. Obviously, we need to get the input from this committee and other supervisors and the community at large as to what the next steps are. The major recommendations after Duncan Barrett recited what was discussed by the panelists and the people who participated after the panel with questions, are that a countywide task force be formed to discuss and build consensus on the needs, priorities, and community engagement. We can come back and look at the details of each of these. Number 2, the countywide effort would need professional and active leadership and they proposed several models. And then the broad agreement that the lack of infrastructure is an obstacle, and with the substantial federal funding coming forward, that there should be a focus on how you backfill the infrastructure to build the housing that you need in the communities, consistent with what each town or village or the city is looking to have as housing in their community. And I did not get a chance to call the county engineer to tip him off that there was a suggestion that he do an inventory. I will assure him tomorrow that we will work with him on that, but it wasn't intended to surprise him in tomorrow's paper. And I think that as we go through this, it would be best to form a task force, and would recommend that you give me your feedback now. And I know Supervisor Basson asked me, would every town have a representative on it? I get a little nervous with 18 members on a task force, but I don't know that if there's no other way, then that's what you do, and you give everybody the opportunity to have a voice. And I didn't want to say, well, Rojan Housing Task Force gets one, because then we get down, we lose 3 towns together. But
They can duke it out.
But again, I don't need to figure out these details. We can recommend stuff, but we really want to get some feedback from you in the remaining time here.
Can I just say, from an employer who receives appropriation funding, we've had 6 positions that we've been filling since I started, And the majority of the reason, 90% that people turn us down, if they want to move here, they thought it would be so much less expensive. So just two specifics, I have a person who's living in Hudson who is making $50,000 a year, has a master's degree, and is paying $2,200 a month of rent and can't sustain it, so we have to use this back. We have another person who's trying to find, so we just have, these are the folks who are coming in, young professionals or professionals who've been around a while who want to attract us and get more. So the person's making between $40,000 and $65,000. There's no affordable programs like that could help offset the cost, and also, I don't understand how that, I know it's an issue in a lot of places, but we have for so many years before we moved to our region and think it's going to be so much less expensive. But what's happened in the last 2 years, it's very difficult for us to hire professional staff and retain them. And it's across Cornell Park of Extension as well, in all of the upstate counties. So that's my anecdote.
We had, as you know, have 2 openings as well. We have a person to work with Martha. Lauren Crana had resigned to take a remote job that paid more. And we have a part-time administrative assistant. And again, it's been very difficult to find people. But I guess from the supervisor's perspective at this committee meeting, we have to know that there was discussion, Chairman shared with me discussion at the
Mike, have we looked at what other communities have done successfully around us? I mentioned to you that I've met a woman by the name of Krista Hines, who runs the Hudson River Housing Organization. They have a stellar track record of building affordable workplace housing and managing it. Salisbury, Connecticut has a reputation for doing this well. I think
there are a host of similar groups. There's, you certainly have RUPCO. You've got Hudson Valley Housing. You've got Peg O'Leary at the other Hudson River Housing Organization. The issue we found so far is that RUPCO just agreed to do a project in Greene County. But generally, as the not-for-profit developer, they also bring in and partner with a private sector developer. And with limited water, sewer, gas, electric, and broadband at the same location, it's not a big enough project for those groups to be interested in. Now we have to attract them. We have to figure out how to make it more worth their while. And we have
what size project is worth their while?
70 to 80 units, and you can only build that in Greenport, Germantown, Hillsdale, Hudson, and I don't think the Kinderhook system is big enough.
It's got one spot.
Yeah,
Well, that's infrastructure, that's not political threat. Those communities may not want.
right. But that's why part of the
No, but I want to
recommendation,
make that distinction.
Yeah.
That's an important distinction.
I think we have to focus on the low-hanging fruit first, so that, but not lose track of the fact that if a community wants, I've also been researching package plants. I mean, they're not going to build a $5 million sewer plant in New Lebanon, as an
Mike,
example.
I guess a 70-unit housing project is not likely to work in 15 of the 18 towns.
Right. So then we looked at 4 to 6 units.
4 to 6 units, 4 to 8 units. Is anybody out there capable of managing that kind of development project or interested in that kind of development project?
Sorry, let me tell you this too. I mean, I got a small project proposed in Stuyvesant where the developer wants to do 20 homes on half-acre lots, and they want to do a central water or sewer system, manage it all themselves. And most of my residents are livid over it.
Right, I can understand
Just
that.
can't stand it.
So the question is 4 to 8.
So I think.
Who would
think-
take it? Who would accept what?
I think
town?
4 to 6, if you talk to the county health department and the state DEC, and they have to be on 5-acre parcels, appropriately distanced, because the septic field issue, if you put them all together, you might as well.
Right.
So
Are there developers who do that we've identified or not?
We have identified them, and that's why I think these recommendations, we would really benefit from dealing with managing these recommendations at this point in time. This only confirmed
Speak up a little bit.
Brenda?
this report aligns with the Patterns for Progress report, which aligns with the two housing studies, the more
Right.
recent one and one from several years ago. So we're getting the same data, but it's compounded by circumstances. Because of COVID, the situation has only gotten worse. So I think we need to act on the two recommendations that are here. And the reason I think we need to act on not one, but both of them is that Hudson hired a housing, I think they call it a housing justice officer a year ago.
We might want to use a different term.
But we might use a different terminology, but they had additional goals.
Yeah.
And, I have followed this closely and they've accomplished more in the last year than they'd accomplished in the previous 10 years in terms of housing initiatives. And one of the initiatives that they accomplished was that as part of their Patterns for Progress study, they inventoried all of the city-owned properties. And then they put those properties into a bid list and they put those properties out to bid. And these were small scattered sites. They were the 2 to 4 to 6 lot developments. And I understand that they're close to an agreement with 2 developers for the majority of those sites. So, or for a number of those sites. So we know that there are developers, we just don't know who they are. So I think that we need to apply the same kind of rigor to our process. We need to have a housing officer that is dedicated to going out to identifying perhaps county-owned properties, perhaps properties that are in various towns and villages that would be suitable for this kind of development, and have someone, develop an RFP, put an RFP out there and identify those developers. One of the things that the preparer of this report and I talked about at length was this model of developers needing private partnerships in order to fund their projects. And that's where we lose out every single time, because we're never going to have that kind of scale. Our communities don't want that kind of scale. But it'd be interesting to know who the Hudson developers are and why this was attractive to them. I think one of the reasons that will prove out is that land is becoming increasingly scarce and increasingly expensive, but also the fact that the city of Hudson has come forward as a willing partner. They want to assist in this effort. They want to make sure. So the developer is aware that there's not going to be public opposition to his development. If he makes a commitment, he's going to have help in seeing his commitment. But I think without a task force and without a housing officer, we're going to find ourselves in the same position a year, 2 years, 3 years. I think we have, and I'll give you another example. So thank you, Lisa, for your example. It's a very graphic example, but I was in a Health and Human Services meeting in which we were discussing, Commissioner Gibson was talking about the fact that he has 20 households. Some of those are single households, some of them are families that are ready to come off his assistance list and to go into affordable housing. But he not only does he not have any housing for them, they have Section 8 vouchers, which the initial term of the voucher is 30 days. If at the end of 30 days, they haven't been able to find housing with assistance from a housing officer at DSS, they can get a 30-day extension. If at the end of 60 days, they can't find housing, they can get an extension requested by the Department of Social Services. We now have people that are going to have to go all the way down to the bottom of that list, because after 90 days of both DSS and families searching for homes, there aren't any affordable housing, even with that subsidy. There aren't homes for those families to move into. So we're creating this kind of, there are all these unintended consequences associated with our not having housing stock for people to move into.
Let me go back. If the only places we're likely to see major developers interested in putting up 70 units at a time, we probably need 5 or 6 of those projects in the next year to meet the existing demand. The only places are in the Hudson Greenport area. Is that?
Well, there's a 150 unit project proposed in Greenport by Redburn Development, who built the Wick Hotel and also have done several $100 million of development in the capital region. That project has to go. It's before the planning board. They have to amend their application. They have been approved. Their application has been accepted by the Columbia County IDA.
My question is, are there any other places in the county other than Greenport and Hudson if that kind of development is feasible.
Potential at 9H and 66, if they could convince the town of Greenport to allow that project to use the Commerce Park sewer line.
Okay, so we,
Chatham could do it.
I think Chatham could, I know there was a developer who was looking at the property just south on 66 of Price Chopper, but it's in the town of Ghent. So they would have to get permission
There was
to,
another one too, that there was huge public opposition.
Yeah.
so my point is, we probably have 3 or 4 major developments in the Hudson Greenwood area that we should be pursuing.
we are.
But then there are 15 other towns that need 4 to 8 or 4 to 6. And we need somebody to start pursuing that.
Well, and once you start that model,
It seems like it's going to be much more efficient for the county to subsidize with talent, that search and development, and for each town to try to do it on its own.
well, and I also think that what will happen is if you find someone who's interested and the right model is developed, they'll be willing to do, 2 6 units in each town and then have 50 units to have the one maintenance person and one rental agent. And you'll build the economy of scale in small increments. And then we also have to look at how we help people improve their existing housing stock so it's not bought and flipped.
And this is wasn't this one of the big Hudson initiatives that the federal grant for home improvements?
Yeah, I was gonna add that as a mix to what I think you're trying to get to, Art, is that there is state funding available for rental rehab. If you have a unit and you're renting, you can get federal funds or state funds to improve maintain and improve your property.
So as an owner or as a renter?
As an owner who rents,
Okay, yeah.
if you rent if you have an affordable rent, if you own and you rent.
So that
people,
sounds like a third avenue of focus.
Right.
And you can get, there's also grants for first-time home buyers at a certain level. So if you combine the rental rehab, the home ownership rehab, and the first-time home ownership, the challenge is that because the properties are so high, that there's still a gap between the lowest levels and those programs. But as you're talking about people with incomes of 40 to 60,000, maybe even 40 to 90,000, they might have hard time finding housing. But if you layer in some of these state funding programs,
Right.
that might be the difference between someone with $50,000 being able to afford and not afford it. So the question is that to get those things, you need to have a grants manager who's applying for the grants, which is that was one of the key things. So the city of Hudson got $500,000 for this program for rental rehab and homeownership rehab in the city of Hudson. The first time we've had the program for 15 years because we had somebody who was able to write the grants, make the request, and manage it. But certainly, I mean, those are the kind of programs that it's not going to solve the whole issue, but it could certainly be the difference between 5 or 10 units in the county and not. So those are if you have staff that can work on those projects, those are the kinds of things you can start doing.
Right.
And my understanding is that these grants are oftentimes way more than 500,000. This was like the trial balloon because the last time the city last had it, it mixed up the program 15 years ago or something like that. So if we do well this time, we'll get more next time. So you add that up every year, that could be a big difference.
Yes, sure. So I guess my question and my point is, are you guys comfortable building the housing talent pool that the county needs to pursue these multiple priorities?
Could this be under CEDC?
Well, I think that really is up to the supervisors, and I think there, however you decide to do this, I think there is ARPA money available for it. But yeah, I would defer to all of you. I think you've seen that where asked, we've been able to develop the capacity to do what has been helpful to you. But again, I'm not here tonight to try to steer you in one direction or another as to how you would go about doing
Yeah,
this.
I just am a little bit concerned, and I hate to use the term, messing around with this 10 years and we've made minimal progress, partially because we haven't had resources organized, concentrated, and well managed against the opportunities and the challenges. And until we decide that we want to fund a housing not so much a task force, but a housing engineering team that is centrally controlled, that serves the entire county. Big cities, you know, the large projects, the Hudson rehabs, and the rural town 4 to 6, and make all three of those initiatives happen simultaneously with the talent necessary to do it. We're not going to get anywhere. It's going to be haphazard.
And I think once it gets seeded and starts, it will take on a life of its own. But and that's why, you know, I'm never thrilled about the idea of creating another permanent full-time position in bureaucracy, where, you know, to do something that is a little more, you know, leaner and entrepreneurial, because you're gonna be working with people who are lean and entrepreneurial to get it done. And, you know, again, you know, we'd be happy to explore that with you and
Without establishing these.
you don't.
Which is why you said you've been stagnant for 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, we basically talk the talk, but we don't spend the energy or the money to make it happen.
What are we talking about? If something like this were to be housed under CEDC, what would it cost?
I think, you know, based on, you know, salary and I think you need some programmatic $25,000 a year for programs so that you can, if you need a consultant to get this done, or need something to get, I think you could do it, on a 3-year basis for $250,000 to $300,000.
Probably need 3 people to work on 3 different areas of priority, a team, secretary, administrative type, and some consulting money.
That would be a little higher than what I was thinking, but I think you'd get started with, you know, a $65,000 to $70,000 coordinator who's got experience, and then yeah, you could certainly look at how you would scale it up. You know, I think one piece I'd go out and I did get from Suzette the list of people who own 2 to 4 unit multifamily units, so that if they're successful in making some money doing that, maybe they want to build 2 to 4 and down the street, you know. But I do think that I don't know that you would immediately add, you know, 2 to 3 to 4 people to this, because it would lose sight. You need, and Jessica,
I think you're right. I think it needs sort of momentum first.
I mean,
It seems to me like if you actually had a piece of land,
Michelle's done.
like that's the problem.
Yeah.
Hasn't just-
well,
I mean, I talked to Dee Barrett, she said, give us, where's the project? She would be glad to support it and assist. And he could say the same to the senator. The issue is land
and public support.
I don't think Greenport will have an issue with, I mean, who else is gonna do it?
Yeah.
Or somewhere on 66, we just put in that new sewer, right?
That would be the other
Who's
side.
there? I mean, I think we keep knocking our heads against the
The
wall.
following we had there is,
I mean, when was the last housing thing done? You did what, 10 years ago? You had this, Hudson, we studied this stuff. Yeah.
I think the real issue is that we have to be sure that it's not just high-end luxury housing that's being proposed.
No, that's my point. I mean, my point is you find the land and then you find. the
We're,
developer that goes
Mr.
with
Chairman, we're at 6 o'clock.
No.
I have one
Question.
3-part quick question. One, so I've done a lot of housing work over the years, county, as part of my job. We have this, technical training program in community college. So one thing other counties have done is leverage that. Because you know that there's a lot of folks retiring out of the trades. And I don't know, next to ignorance, to have a Habitat for Humanity or youth build in this county, was getting folks to funnel into those career systems. In addition to building, you need to have trades folks who are gonna wanna work into the next, you know, several
They're
decades.
working on that.
So that kind of-
working on that.
However, we could be, like, as an extension of, but we could be of support. We have some properties that, you know, the property we have there, it could be a site for training. You know, we are on 66, and when I drive through 66, I think about that, you know, what is this space out connecting back into Hudson? And, so I do think that there's always opportunity. We're looking at also how it's affecting the workforce, because that's a job that a person can get, not get to college yet, come out making a good salary, hourly rate, $40 to $60 an hour for one line electrician. So we have to think about the whole cycle of it.
I have one more comment. Is there a way that the towns, and I don't know all of the laws, that can encourage some people already own a piece of property that they might expand that to create your 1 or 2 units or, I don't know all.
You would do it through the Industrial Development Agency, but again, the project has to be
I'm talking about individuals, if they have some sort of a incentive, what's that incentive?
Yeah.
What can the town do to create the incentive for the homeowner? Is it a tax? Is there some kind of tax relief, or is there some kind of assistance that can be given to someone who wants that?
Best thing
Turn
government can do is get out of the way of the
into-
developer.
Huh?
The best thing government can do is get out of the way of the developer.
Well, that's my point, is that the individual has the opportunity to create a
Right.
housing space.
Let them do it.
Yeah, but,
Builders will build what there's a market for.
if the law in your town is against it, that's my point.
I think what you're looking at is it would be through,
Ron, can you answer that? You just shake your head. Can I do that in your town?
Can you do that?
Every town can amend its zoning.
All right, but that's the
But-
answer.
Well, you have a lot of,
people
you
who
know,
don't want.
it's been said numerous times, you have a lot of public opposition to some of these projects.
But is it
Even
up
if they
to
are
each
allowed
town?
within zoning, there can be public opposition. That's, I think, is part of what, and I think that's what was talked about earlier. And I think, to Brenda's point, when we talk about the city of Hudson, so they have the control of being able to say the government's going to hire this housing director and they're going to find a project that's approved by the city's government. Harder to do that in
Yeah, but
town.
that's not my point. My point is, there's an individual in your town that's willing to create another housing unit, the property they already have. How complicated, is there any way?
We think that I think what it would be grants or state tax credits to those people, not from the land, not from the town. Supervisor Cousin has raised her hand. I don't know if we can hear her.
Can you hear me?
Yes, there you
I
are.
was just going to piggyback on what Linda's saying. And if you think about it as a property owner deciding that they want additional income and want to build a duplex, and that turns into 2-3 bedroom apartments, is there a way that cities and villages in Columbia County can offer an incentive to be that type of, landlord on their own property that their house exists on or that they've been owning? And I think that there probably is pandemic money out there to, match those types of needs, because it doesn't rise to the level of a large development project, but it is still creating housing in these places.
Mr. Chairman, I think that these are why I support the recommendations of the study that there be a task force and that some entity be hired to guide this on a full-time basis that will then determine if there's a greater need to add more staff or more programmatic funding could be addressed. But I think time is of the essence, no matter how you determine the best way to approach
Who
this.
makes that decision?
That's what I was just
Are you
thinking.
seeking
What's our next
support
step?
of the committee?
I'm not seeking support that it be CEDC. I'm seeking support that you do both of those things. And if you would like us to play a role in that, we'll figure out what works best to support
I
you.
would never read it.
Could we have a vote of support, or
The recommendation.
a recommendation for support, not for CEDC, but for the
Would
first
this
two?
committee be open to having another meeting next month? Instead of going 2 months,
Only on housing.
have a next meeting,
Yeah.
only discuss
Good
housing.
idea. Good idea.
Yeah.
Give us a
Okay.
chance to read.
So,
through it.
I would recommend at this point is everybody look over the paperwork.
The study was designed, when we went into the study, I said, look, there's 3 things you can do here. You can build multifamily housing as it's known in large. You can support fixing up housing that is currently in existence so people can stay in place. And the third was how you find 2, 4, 6 unit additions.
So we need to do all 3.
2, 4, and 6 may already be a little easier if we
So
would
another layer.
consider how people could be assisted to expand their own property.
And what recommended
Make
zoning.
Ron happy.
Yeah.
Ron, my team, right?
I got, Stuyvesant's got 75 new double wide mobile homes going in down there and the developer is paying for all the infrastructure. I think
So can we do more of that somewhere else?
you just need a developer to do it.
Fortunately, the
You took-
mobile,
It took that developer probably 2 years to get through all of the, legal. red tape to
Is
get
that
to
Alvarez is doing that?
fortunately, the manufactured home, site was already there, because if you
Right.
tried to cite it de novo, you might have a,
Can somebody like Alvarez
Right.
type into this?
Yep.
Could they,
well, I think you would want developers on your task force or community leaders. Well, we're on budget. We're 3% over budget right now, at CEDC after 6 months. So, that's not a problem. Jessica and I are working with the many people who are looking to get, CFA applications in next Friday or other types of, government support. And, I think, we continue to send out the statistics, on job growth, unemployment, housing, and sales tax. I checked before I came, but the sales tax numbers, which are usually released by this point in time, aren't out yet.
We got our check.
Yeah, we got our checks.
You got your checks, but that was from May.
Oh,
I'm looking at June
Oh,
numbers.
okay.
And then also, on the housing front, the big news was the median sale price dropped to 380 from 400. But I mean, the last 2 years ago, it was 240. So I mean, I don't know where people, unless you're in a place to live right now and you have a locked in rent, I don't know how you can, go to sleep at night wondering where you're going to live in the county. And if you're at working salaries. And even the proposed project in Greenport, they are looking at 30% of county median income, which would mean, $70,000 to $100,000 of household income. But there are a lot of people who don't meet that criteria.
So you said
Do you-
the other
you
layers
can just
of
speak up, I think.
projects.
Go ahead.
We're the only ones that
Supervisor.
see that.
I was just gonna say, most people can't sleep at night. And I was going to suggest that for this meeting next month, we include and invite the Health and Human Service Committee, because this was much of the frustration at the end of the meeting and a lot of what the conversation was. And it seems like housing is gonna fall in almost every committee's lap very shortly. And I think that the more support we have across the board, the better we'll be.
Thank you. Chairman, I'll yield back the remainder of my time, and if anyone has any questions, they can review the packet or call me, or Jessica.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Jessica.
Thank you for bringing this to us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, this is moving along.
And so will economic development schedule the special meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll coordinate with Kelly and Matt, and we'll probably be the same Monday that we normally meet, but in August.
That would be
The end of the month.
the
might
22nd.
get FEMA to help out.
Have a flood.
Is that possible?
Well,
I'm serious.
I think,
I mean, we are an emergency.
Yeah.
This is an emergency. People are staying in crappy motels.
how many people does Commissioner Gibson have a night? I mean, over 100.
So that's my
Yeah.
point, that we are under an extreme emergency.
Well, we'll soon have a congressman or a woman, and
Well, that's
Well, what does it take to generate that such flood?
I don't think FEMA has funding for,
I know, I'll take a look at it
Come on,
to
let's
see if
say
it's
we-
eligibility, but I like the idea of let's be creative. Let's look and see what's out there. So they provide housing, but it's usually specific to an emergency declaration.
Well, maybe
I
we
don't-
can get one.
Well, maybe we need to do that, because yesterday I had a constituent reach out to me. I wasn't able to help myself, but they were processing an eviction, and the conditions of the place that they were put after their eviction was, the only thing that was up to code was probably this padlock that was put in so that the door couldn't be kicked down. But there was, blood on the walls, bed bugs on the mattress that were visible. And that's the condition that motel owners are allowed to operate. And even when DSS gives them citations, there's not much room for pushback because there is nowhere to send them. It is a crisis. So if there is a way to push our mayors or, whoever is in charge in each different zone or district, I think that we do need to declare a housing crisis in our county.
The pieces to that, the domestic violence beds have been reduced by a third in Columbia County and eliminated in Greene County. So we have a domestic bed shortage. And I think that we, as Claire indicated, you know, this is all coming together. It's one.
It's getting worse. It's not getting better. And the time, I think Supervisor Basson points out, the timeline to get these things agreed upon and built is not on our favor.
But we don't think about the interim, which is why I think
What's that?
Jessica has the answers that maybe we can ask.
Double check her resume. She started out at Office
I
of
know, I've
Community
checked
Renewal.
it out. I'm ready to go.
Pleasure of the board. I'm not a big fan of virtual meetings.
No.
I'd rather meet in person, but I will yield to the board. I understand you have a commute.
But I don't want to do it virtually. I want to do it sooner, not.
Oh, sooner.
Yes, I'd
Okay, I'm
rather do
sorry.
it middle of the month rather
You're
than.
hearing.
Yeah, I don't mind virtual either. I just have COVID.
We can do both. This worked out pretty well. I was,
Well, Brenda's question is, can we do it sooner than the 22nd?
We're gonna have to go for Kelly.
yeah,
Yeah.
Just a
Talk to Kelly
request.
about, you know,
I really do think this is,
this is critical.
yes.
I mean, I think we could go directly to the governor. They're right up the street.
Mhm.
In reality, we're not far away. We have Gillibrand, we have Barrett. I think there's a lot of people we have at our disposal who are willing to help. We just have to come up with some creative ideas.
I think you have to package it exactly and sort of give them the answer and
Right,
what you need
motels
from
are
them.
not fit for humans to be in,
Mhm.
and that's where we're putting
And paying a high price.
and paying a high price. So
One last thing, Chris Nardone wasn't able to come, but I asked him and he provided a summary of where they are with respect to trends in local workforce. And he said if you had any questions, you could reach out.
I'll touch base with Kelly about trying to do it sooner than the 22nd. And I will let the committee know. We come up with.
now I'll make a motion to adjourn. How's that?
Second,
Any opposed?
good meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jessica. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, good stuff. It's,
Thank you. Claire?
Supervisor Cousin knows it's not an easy, you're in the midst of the middle of it.
Especially when you're on the ground. There's nothing easy about it. I get calls
I mean-
at hours of the night about finding apartments or, you know, things that actually happen at the motels. It's many sleepless nights for me also. Being a supervisor puts me in a position to have the conversations with people that can make actual changes. So it is definitely difficult.
Have a good night. Thanks.
Good night. Bye.
Thank you.
Like before you get to,
Cameron, you all set?
No, housing.
Good, okay, great. Thank you so much for everything.